Welcome everyone to Monday with Masami, and today is November 9th. Can we just sigh for a moment, everyone? Can we just sigh? Um, Not to show too much excitement here because I'm trying to be a neutral human being, but it's very difficult. And what I can say is that feels like many of us just been through some kind of PTSD. I'm not quite sure if you are feeling that, but there's this sense of like I can breathe. And for the longest time, I'll just give you my little secret that I was doing. For the last literally about 6 months, I have been like wanting to not wear bra. Well, thank God, it's COVID, right? But it's not just the COVID. It's like, I don't want anybody restricting me like a Chinese torture device. So it's just, I keep, taking my bra off, and like Chris will find bras at like random places around the house. And he's like, why are you leaving bras? I'm like, because I can't breathe. Okay. So today I feel like I have spaciousness right in my rib cage. So I hope all of you are sighing and now taking a breath, right? Remember that the breath starts with exhales. Exhales is the most important thing because in the Chinese language, which we share in Japanese language, the first character is to breathe out. You must release before we can breathe in. Before you can go and buy more stuff in your closet, you must purge. So it's kind of, that's what we're doing. We're releasing this. And, any of you that read my email from last night, this is not easy right now either. Okay. But you're the center of the storm. You're the eye of the storm, right? This is not, you don't look around and get pulled into the storm. There will be a lot of adjustments this week. Okay. So not only your Mars retrograde goes direct on the 13th, so you are going to be confronted with a little bit more waves of old ways of doing things, old patterns, old ego. Maybe some of you are already feeling some of that coming up, okay? Old narratives. And then the way you used to react to things, just kind of like, oh my gosh, I haven't reacted like this in a long time, but they will come back and challenge you because your old ego's job is to want to be with you, okay? It wants to be with you. So it will do everything in its power to try to say, hey, can we revisit our old ways? Wasn't it fun when we used to react to things this way? Okay. So just want you to know that the Mars is going to go direct, but that doesn't mean that you're done. It's just that you're going to probably go through a couple more rounds of it this week. And that's Friday, so you can kind of aim for that. I think Thursday is going to be maybe another little bit of a bumpiness. I would say a little bit emotional. So what you want to make sure is the next couple of days you get plenty of sleep, plenty of water, and maybe get some fresh air. Okay, we just started having some snowflakes come down. We're in Colorado, and but I still went outside this morning, did my morning routine. I still did the movements, and I started to so breathing exercises too, but I started to add one more thing to really work with my old patterns, my old judgments, and my it's like, am I worth it? Am I okay? Like I started to go into this zone of like, nobody wants to hear me. Nobody wants me to continue to do a Monday with Masami. And that's going to be the question you're going to be answering today. Should I be continuing with the Monday with Masami? Because inside me says, nobody wants to hear from you. So that's my old ego that was talking to me this morning. So what I did and what I've been starting to add to my morning routine is shape shifting. Okay, shape shifting pose. And so now that I feel like my rib cage can open up a little bit, I am not hunched forward all day long, and I'm taking a very different quality breaths. I'm putting my hands on my waist and doing the Wonder Woman pose, right? The power pose. And I stand like this. And I'm going to stand up here too, but stand in, like put your arms out and palms facing up or out. That's what I'm doing my power pose after my breath work. And I hold my exhales as long as I can after I do the breathing workout. I hold my exhale and I put my arms out, power pose, and then I put my arms out. And I just visualize light flooding the universe and the light coming out of my power pose in the center of who I am. And it's like heart, but also belt. You know, like I have like a powerful belt on me, and it's like it's beaming light out. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm not just shining light, I'm flooding the light. Okay, and I'm receiving that also. But I hold my breath doing it as long as I can. And I start to get tingly in my hands, and I get tingles everywhere in my body. Part of it's because by, physiology, right? Because you're holding your exhales. So you're building up your CO2s, which is a good thing. And then I release. And then I take a deep breath, or like a wide breath that will open me up. Okay. And then I stand there and I ask myself a question. It's like, I know that the I am love. I know that the I am the light. Okay. Then how would I step into today's world of unknown? Because it's still unknown. We're still in the liminal space. How would I step into the world if I knew for sure that the I am light and I am love? Okay. So you may want to start to come into everyday practice knowing that you are the light and you're love. What would you do for yourself? So this morning I had a client that was very interesting. She was saying, I know I'm love, I know I'm the light, but her food choices were not reflecting that. So I said to her, I said, well, if you know that you're love and light, then why aren't you stepping into your daily practice with that same idea, same knowing? Okay. So this week, and it may sound tedious, I want you guys to pay a little more close attention to your choices, like day to day, maybe even hour to hour, maybe 5 minutes at a time. You pay attention, because there's a lot of chaos going on. So it's so easy to get sucked into that. If you are an empath, you're an intuitive, you're sensitive, you're going to get sucked into that. So you want to go, okay, I'm just going to go into the day-to-day decision, moment by moment. And so what you eat for breakfast is going to matter. What you're going to eat for lunch is going to matter. What glass of water you're drinking, that's going to matter. So go into not an extreme level of, I am going to solve the issues for the rest of the world, but no. Do what you can. As you flood the light into the world, you come back to yourself and say, now with that place in mind, how can I serve who I am? So you're ready. So you're ready to be the light that everybody is waiting to see in you. Okay. So manage your day to day, because we're still in the liminal space. Okay. So it's important that this month you focus a little bit more on small tasks. Okay. Little by little. That's going to amount to be a giant mountain. Okay. So, let's see, I can say so much more here, but let me just go back and remember the power pose. And if you've never seen the TED Talk that Amy Cuddy did, Cuddy on TED Talk, you might want to look her up, Amy Cuddy, okay? And she did, several years ago, did a TED Talk on the power pose. And it's fantastic, because when you do the power pose, your hormones get adjusted, your hormones balance, okay? And as we get older, we all lose testosterone, right? Men and women. And we need that in order to stay youthful looking and to stay, your joints lubricated, and then you got growth hormones coming in, and you have mind that is strong, and you're able to make decisions and go forward. So the power pose actually increases your testosterone. And when your testosterone is leveled with your estrogen and then progesterone, okay, which we need all three, but testosterone is one of those things that will decrease. Then when you do those power poses after the breathing, that will create a sense of knowing who you are. You will be able to combat stressors and stay confident in your decisions. Okay. And so you stop reacting to different comments, thoughts, stressors, different waves, these different cosmic shifts we're experiencing this month. you will respond to it a little bit differently, because you will respond from the knowing place that you are grounded in who you are. Okay. And then another thing that's happening this week that all of you really want to pay attention is the new moon. Okay. That's the Saturday, I believe. So it is, new moon is on Saturday. So we got the Mars direct, and then the moon that's going into new moon. So what you want to do is you are eliminating things this week. You're getting rid of your old ways. So you're going to be very clear and emptied by that new moon on Saturday, and you can slowly build back up. Okay. And I do think that we are going to continue to experience some shifts, okay, adjustments, things that you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is still happening, and that things that will rattle you. And I do think there's going to be some rattling. Okay. I don't want to say this from a fearful place, because I'm not. Okay. No need to fear, because you're grounded. But there will be some things that are going to rattle your inner being this weekend. Okay. I do think that, like Friday into Saturday, maybe even into Sunday, that you go, I just can't believe it. Why is this still happening? Okay. I don't know exactly what that is, but that's what I sense. That's why I want you to eat well. I want you to get the information through the food. Food is knowledge. Food is information. Food is light. Food is love being given to you. So, okay, I went into preacher mode for a moment there, so I'm going to pause, and then maybe Chris has something to add. So.
Yeah, I wanted to add a couple of things about the unknown, because we've spent so much time this year talking about liminal space and the things that we can't see. And I think one thing, just coming across some old notes of mine, I'm going to share a couple of things in the chat in just a moment here, but one of them was, it was a couple of years ago, but coming into this time of year where things are also getting darker by season, it's very easy to feel the darkness. And from my view, I would say from our view, darkness is kind of a stand-in for the unknown. And so I'm going to just share this little insight I had that I wrote down in one of my notebooks, and it was that darkness is the light we cannot see. Okay, so darkness is the light we cannot see. And if we can go into the time right now where we've just come out of, whatever your stance might be on the political spectrum, we're in a period of unknown. And we have to remember that. That's true for everybody. And so that sense of darkness, whatever it could be, has very much to do with what we don't yet understand. And sometimes it's what we can't understand. We just won't ever have access to know it. So gaining a sense of comfort with being uncomfortable around unknown is a necessary thing to do, if that makes sense. It seems a little bit paradoxical, but we have to learn to be comfortable with our discomfort around the things that we can't know. We can't know the future. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, or even later today. So I'll stop with that, but there's one quote that I came across. I actually found it in one of my old notebooks yesterday, and Masami had written it down randomly on a page, and I was just flipping through trying to find some other notes that I'd written, and I'm going to put that up on the chat. It's another Rumi quote, and it says, "Wherever you stand, be the soul of that place." So I would just encourage everyone to really take that in also. Wherever you stand, be the soul of that place. That's something we can all do, whether we understand it completely or not. So I'm going to be before I jump off, Masami, I'm going to do a little quick shout out to some of the things that you've got coming. And so for those of you that haven't had a chance to visit Masami's website, I'm going to put that up too. You can click on there. Masami has a lot of pretty exciting things coming up in addition to Monday with Masami. She is a guest presenter on the Shift Network's Energy Medicine and Healing Summit, which begins on the 16th. The Masami's coming on the 20th. And so that's coming up soon. And she has some other events that are coming up also. She has a a Q&A session with John Burgos on the Beyond the Ordinary show this Wednesday. So you can find all of those things and more than what I just mentioned on the website. If you just click there, it's right at the top of the homepage. So please do that. And thank you for those of you that gave Masami the little nudge toward continuing on, because technically today was supposed to be the last one. This was going to be a limited series. And so, yeah, so if that's something that it helps Masami to know. She doesn't always say, but thank you for those of you who said, yes, please continue. There were several of you that said that. Okay, I'm going to stop.
All right, good. And then I'll mention a couple more other things that I have been invited to do a little retreat things this weekend, and I'll be on live on Saturday at 4 Eastern time. So that's listed on my homepage, and it's Mia Moran. Is that Mia? Okay. Mia Moran's retreat, and that's listed there. And I'll be sending everybody emails on that too. And then my 4Bs live calls are in December. So first 2 weeks in December. And that, if you haven't signed up, the price will go up soon, but it's 4 live calls, and I was going to do 45-minute each on the live calls, but you know me, everyone. So I went up to 1 hour per session. So it's 4 hours now. You will be, you'll be strapped onto your chairs for 4 sessions, 1 hour each. So, I call it the hostage situation with Masami. Okay. Because you will be stuck, but we will do that. So if you haven't signed up for it, please do. It's 4Bs and 4Bs of flow, bile. And we're going to be talking about bile, but we're going to talk about breath, and we're going to talk about the brain, and we're going to talk about the boundaries. Okay. So please sign up. All right. And then, that's how you can help me to continue to do this Monday with Masami, because I'm going to do my very best not to go into the mode of most people do, which is they make it a membership site. I don't know. There's something about it that I don't like it. So I'm not going to make Monday with Masami a membership site. I'm just going to show up and then do this. Okay. And I will probably take a couple weeks off in December when I'm doing the 4Bs live calls, because that's a lot of prep for me. So I just wanted to let you know. But if you want me to continue, do tell me, because I don't know. Trust me, I have absolutely no idea if anybody's getting anything out of it. So, okay. All right. That being said, let's go into questions, because I got some really interesting questions that were on the Facebook page, as well as I received another, it was an email. So I'm going to start with question number 1. And Rena asked me, my question is about the connection between the stress response of fight or flight, the adrenals, and a buildup of fluid with someone with a medical diagnosis of a heart condition. They call it severe pulmonary edema that accompanies an irregular heartbeat, And I'm very familiar with irregular heartbeat issues as well, because I was born with irregular heartbeat, and my dad had it for his entire life. So, and then he really struggled with the fluids building up in his lungs and heart conditions. So I'm very familiar with it. But basically she's saying that I'm watching my dad fill up with fluid, being told by doctors that this is because his heart can't work efficiently enough to release the fluid. He, like many other heart patients, are given a ton of tablets, the medications to release fluid, which creates such severe imbalance in his body. And, his symptoms are that he begins to wheeze when he refuses the medications. He has had his lungs drained previously because he refused the fluid tablets. He's very alternative in his ideas and knows his body and doesn't want to put what he calls poison in his body. And her father is 85. Okay, so then basically she's saying, I'm not like, what's going on? Basically, she said, I feel I'm not seeing the wood for the trees with this. And considering humanity is releasing grief at the moment, which is true, everyone, I would love some of your wisdom, if possible, in the hope that it may support others too. Okay. So with this, I kind of wanted to bring me back to when I got an email or call from my brother when my dad went into the hospital. And then basically he was in the hospital for quite some time at that point, and his lungs were filling up, and heart was failing. And then the doctor basically said he has probably about a week to live. And so my brother contacted me, and it's just a kind of a family history. You probably don't even need to know the details, but I hadn't seen my father for a long time, years at this point. So my siblings, my two other siblings, said they weren't going to visit dad, that it was over. But that night I went to bed and I woke up with this dream that I needed to go home, and my father was starving. My father was literally starving to death, is what was happening in my dream. Okay. And so I called my brother up and I said, I'm coming home. And I had to fly from Colorado back to my hometown in Japan, Southern Island, Japan. It takes like days to get there because I'm from the boonies. Okay. So he's like, why bother coming back? You said goodbye to him years ago, decades ago. And I was like, nope. As a nutritional therapist and as a health intuitive, I need to go home and feed this man. And he's like, whatever you want to do. So I get on the flight. Flight gets delayed. Snowstorm. It's crazy trying to get there. It literally takes me 2 full days to get home. And then I finally get to the hospital. And my dad is literally, he was 6'4" and he was down to about 120 pounds. So, basically skin and bones at this point, and just the IV as a food. And I had a conversation with the doctor and I said, so what's going on? Why is he just on the IVs? And basically the doctor's like, we've just kind of given up. There's nothing, we're going to do. He's just going to slowly basically starve to death at this point. He didn't say those words. But what I knew was I went home and I actually asked my mother, who had been divorced from him for a long time, bitter divorce. And I asked my mom previously, so like a couple days before I left Colorado, I said, Mom, will you make soups? Will you make bone soups? Because I'm going to need that when I get home. And, she grudgingly, but she made them for me to take to my father. Okay. So I started with dipping the water sponges, and then I started to give him water first day. And then the next day I started to dip into the soups and I started to give him. And then doctors and nurses are like, I don't know what she's doing. But to make the long story short, I started to feed him liquid bone broth and other things mixed in it. I used the powerful blenders, and I started to put some crazy stuff. I mean, some stuff that you guys would be like, what? But it's like sauteed onions to even chicken livers. Okay. I mean, you won't believe what I was putting. It's like crazy. My mom's looking at it because it looks like a mud. And she's like, oh, that looks disgusting. But I'm like, this is going to bring this man back. And I literally in 7 days resurrected my father. Okay. So he went from dying, the doctor said he's never going to come back, to bringing him back. And then the first thing he said to me, well, this was the second thing he said to me, but by the time I started to, give him water and things like that, he said, it's about time that you got here to help me, or something like that. But that's just so him. But then after that, he started to tell me that he was dreaming about the White Castle hamburgers, like born in 1933. So, White Castle hamburgers were like a really big deal for him. So he was talking to me. So I know that he was starving. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is that this is the knowledge that most doctors don't know or have, okay, is the heart condition. Everyone write this down. Heart conditions are starvation symptoms. All right? So anyone that has heart issues, high blood pressure, or any kind of a low blood pressure issues, or heart issues, okay, that means that person is malnourished. and undernourished. And that person is going through a starvation symptoms. Okay. That's one thing that I really wanted to tell you, because your heart disease or heart conditions, heart symptoms are involved with major muscles, the nerves, right? Coronary, circulation, and then there are other factors that come in. But heart is such a giant muscle, requires nutrients. So really think about, if you're having heart issues, please start to feed your body with, maybe start with the liquid soups, okay? Because it's easy to digest, so that your body can recycle it into repairing your heart. So that's one. And inevitably, when you're sick, you're not going to be moving much, right? My father had been stuck on his bed, same hospital bed, for, at that point, I think it was 3 months straight. Okay. So what I did was, my father was so giant, right? 6'4". There's nothing in Japan that fits my dad's size. His legs were so like long that, came up to my ears, right? He was just nothing but limbs. He was a very long stretched out man. So I asked the nurses to bring the Japanese size wheelchair, and I put multiple pillows on the seat cushions so I can have him sit down without bending his knees up to his chins. Okay. And I wheeled him outside into the cool air, blanket over it, but I got him exposed to sunshine. Okay. I did that every single day for those days that I was there, because he had not seen the sunshine for over 3 months in his skin. So those are, it's like a basic human requirements. That's where you need to go when the heart starts to go, because you know that the heart starts to beat within 3 weeks of you, right? Like basically, heart starts beating first before any other organs. Okay. And so heart is like the first connection to the divine and the spirits and the earth. It's the expression of you. So you got to go back to the earthly matter. Get your father grounded, get him the sunshine, get him moving a little bit, because without movements, the fluids cannot move. The lymphatic system cannot do its job if you're not moving. So pointing and flexing your feet. If you're bed rested, you can at least do pointing and flexing. Maybe somebody can help bend the knees, okay, back and forth. So it's like creating like a walking movement. That'll be awesome too. I did all that for my father, and it was an extremely healing experience for me. And at the end, I had not said that I love him for, I don't even know how long, maybe never. And I said that, and I was leaving the next day. The flight was leaving early in the morning, and I was almost going to leave, and this was last goodbye. And because I wasn't going to see him for a while again, I turned around and I said, "I love you, Dad." I almost like choked up because I almost didn't want to say it. My old patterns were like, "Oh, how dare you say that?" And he just turned around and said, "I love you too, sweetheart." And that moment, I forgave him. All right. So there's a lot of that work that we must do. I would say your father may need to do some forgiveness work as well. Okay. He might have some grudge that he's holding on to, that he needs to work on his own flow of love. Okay. Chris, you have anything to add while I blow my nose?
Yeah, I'm going to add that first, I'm going to do one thing. Talking about, I'm watching the chat, so I'm going to comment on that first. And so what I'm going to ask everyone to do is, I saw a few related questions come up, and what we're finding is that to do these calls and to get into some depth, it's going to work best if we can have people submit your questions beforehand, so that Masami has a little time to digest them and really put some thought into them. But some of those questions that came in on the chat were related to other conditions. But I want to just remind everyone that if you understand your body as an energy system, and you understand that nutrients that you get from your food are themselves energy components, things like minerals and vitamins and protein and fat. These are things that fuel our body. They connect things. They make the electricity flow between cells. They communicate across our bodies. You know, all of the functions that we have are based on that energy that we take in through our food. So the simple answer to many of these questions begins with this same thing. And we have to go back and look at the foundations of what we're doing to fuel and build our system. And so many of the conditions that wind up with a diagnosis or a disease name attached to it, if we unwind that and we start looking at the patterns that we've been repeating day after day after day, this is something that maybe you've heard one or both of us say before, but the word diet actually means something like everything you do in a day. The original Greek word was diaeta, and it meant everything you do in a day. And what that first meant was like your wages, the salary, what you earned from your day's work. But it later came to mean everything else that you do. So it's what you eat, what you drink, your stress, your relationships, your attitudes, your decisions. All of those things add up to your daily diet. And if you're not watching those little mundane things that seem so boring, like they shouldn't matter. And we hear a lot of people say that. I know I've said it before myself. That shouldn't matter. It shouldn't make such a big deal that I have to give up this thing, which might be a vice, but I really enjoy it on a kind of self-protecting level, whatever that might be. And if we give ourselves permission to do these little things that are harming us more than helping us, like last time we talked about the energy bank account in your body, and this is related to that. So the daily diet is looking closely and taking care of each moment to the extent that we can. And we're not going to do it perfectly. It's just that the goal that we have, maybe we can make it if we don't have it, that we can set before ourselves is, how can I do a little better? Because if I'm doing a little better each day, I'm at least undoing some of the likelihood that my daily repetition of daily diet patterns is going to add up to disease. Instead, I'm undoing that and I'm putting patterns into place that are going to add up to health and energy and capacity and the things that we want to have as our lives go on. So I just wanted to say that because a lot of the questions that were coming up were really specific things, but they all begin in that same place of what are you doing to nourish your system?
Mm-hmm. And you know, starving for love is a big one. I think so many of us are starving for love. And we can see that from our politicians also, right? Ultimately, they don't know that they're love, and that they're also starving for love. You know, so when I was making this soup, no, I actually made the soup with a lot of love. I remember thinking, I don't care if my brother doesn't want me to go and feed our dad. I don't care if my sister's against this. I don't care if my mother is just annoyed that I'm using her kitchen to make food for her ex-husband. I said to myself, I am here to do this, and I made it my job. I said to Chris before I left, I said, I will not go home as a daughter, but I will go home as a functional nutritional therapist. And I put on the hat that was this is my job to do this right. And, you know, it's like a hospice workers, right? They show up and they get their job done. They are showing up with the fullest light and love that they have. It's not an easy job, but that's what I did. And then what I say to you is that, but by the end of that trip, I left as a daughter. You see, I went there as a nutritional therapist, as a job that I thought that I needed to do. And then that process healed me because I went home with so much love in me. And he lived after that till we had the earthquakes, and he died in the earthquakes, but at least he lived and took care of his affairs. So it really was necessary. So think about, food is not only information, but food is love. Food is vibration. So feed your heart with that vibration and see if you could create some movements for your father. Okay. All
And
right. So I'm
as you
going to,
As you're going to the next one, I just wanted to add one last thing to that, which is I had the opportunity to be part of a program this last month that it was about mortality and coming to terms with our, however old we are, coming to terms with our mortality and the reality of our death. And one of the things that really struck me was a comment that one of the participants made, which was about how important it is not only to be loving, but also to be open to receiving love. And that's the healing equation there. You know, there's something about we have to. There's an old story. I won't get into all of it right now, but it's almost on the level of mythology. There's something called the healing question, and you have to ask the right question in order for the healing to be to be allowed to flow. And that's going to vary by person and situation. But there's something about connecting with not just giving, but also being open to receiving, even if it hurts.
Say that last part.
I just said that it's important to be open to receiving, even if it hurts.
Mm.
And there are many of us that's where we struggle. I know that's difficult for me. It's it's much easier to, it's almost like a wall. Giving can be like, it's like we're lobbing things over our boundaries. And Masami's going to be talking more about boundaries in her program, but we have to let people in our gates too. So there's the vulnerability side of that we have to remember that
That's what I was talking about. At the end, I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say I love you, Dad, because I knew he would turn around and say back to me. I knew that, and I didn't want to hear it, because it would hurt me to hear it, even though it would heal me to hear it, to receive it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, really tap into that vulnerable place. I think we're going to be asked to do some of that this month. Yeah. So really prepare yourself day to day. Just take care of yourself. Know that you're loved and you are being loved. Okay. You're not alone in this. And say that you care and you love to people that you haven't said in a while because you're afraid that they will say it back and you don't want to receive it. It's like, oh, I don't want to hear it. So I never said it. I think that's what was happening to me, is that I never said it because I didn't want to hear it from him. Didn't want to receive his love. So, but I'm really glad that I did that. I was able to do that so I could let go. And when he did die about a year and a half after that, I was very much at peace, very, very much at peace when he left. So
I just want to tie this together. I know there are a couple.
I got several more questions, Chris. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
This thing on the heart though is so big because it becomes a very central thing in our lives around healing. And so on this, I'm distant from my parents as well, but I expressed to my dad I sent him a message just saying, I'd like to be in closer contact. I'm just not sure how to do it. My meaning was, I don't know how to open that door after all these years. He took it very literally and wrote back, for brief messages, you can text. For longer messages, you can email. Phone is also available. And when I got this, I'm like, that's my dorky dad. Okay. So it's like, at first I had to sort of just bite on that answer because it's like, okay, did he deliberately miss my point or was I just not direct enough? And what's funny is I had a couple of people, friends of mine, that pointed out to me, it's like, no, don't you see, he's giving you all these different ways, it's like, don't take it as being blocked, look, he's given you 3 different ways or more that are open. So use the channels. And that's what we all have to do, is just keep the channels open.
Yeah, that's great. I love that story. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Chris. Okay. I'm going to go into question 2, number 2. Okay. Lorraine wrote on a Facebook page. She says, I'm feeling off balance, both in mind, unfocused, and body. What is my body trying to tell me? And so I asked her a little bit further questions, because when you just give me a really like a surface level things, it's a kind of a disservice for me to just tell you It may not get to the point that you need or you could use to support yourself. Okay, so I asked her further questions and she said, I'm not dizzy, but feel like I need to reach out for support. I have not fallen. It doesn't happen all day or at any particular time. Age 75, oh, no headaches, frequent wake ups. I forget about it when I'm outside planting bulbs or otherwise focused. I am experiencing overactive bladder, but try to replenish fluids, wondering if my electrolytes are low or need to supplement a vitamin. I don't have brain fog, but also have not been motivated to put myself on a good schedule or intentions. I'm becoming more sensitive to energies. Third eye is open. Hope that helps. Okay. So when I read that, there were a couple of things that went through me. And in the very first thing, and I actually not texted, but I replied to on a Facebook, because the first thing that came to me was, who's her daughter? And I was like, does she have a daughter? And she said that she actually has three, but there's one in particular that I was like, I gotta talk to Lorraine about her daughter. There's this one daughter, and I guess this one daughter has a Lyme disease. So I do connect with that. I think there is this underlying stressors that it's just been almost like a constant, has become a more of a chronic thing, worrying about your daughter as well. And that can actually lower your immune system more on the chronic level. So it's not an acute immune issues, but chronic. And when you have chronic immune issues, you are going to have some bladder issues as well, because bladder might be dealing with the low grade inflammation. And I see this a lot. And then also, immune system and the bladder can be impacted when you have blood sugar dysregulation. So you're not eating at the right time, you're snacking all the time, or when you're eating something, it's just throwing off your blood sugar. That can be one. And then another supplement that I really think you benefit from is to take thiamine. So that's B1. It's very, very, like, it feels so good for you to be taking B vitamins and high in B1. Okay. And obviously you've got to do a better job with your eating habits. I have no idea what you're eating, but I'm not sensing it's that great. You've got to really avoid gluten and refined carbs and dairy, because that can feed the MOVA infections and bladder. Chronic bladder issues can be that you're eating things that maybe you're allergic to, and then that can continuously feed yeast and fungus also. Okay. And I did sense kind of a yeast and fungal stuff going on too. And another thing that I think is very much connected to that is a neurotoxicity. So when people feel dizzy, or you say, I'm not dizzy, but like a weakness, when you're standing up, number one, we look at your adrenals. But adrenals means blood sugar dysregulation. And the second one is the neurotoxicity. So I suspect that you're not detoxing very well. And, that could mean that because your liver and gallbladder are taxed from the blood sugar dysregulation, and that's caused by adrenals being fatigued also. So number one, take a look at how you're eating. Are you eating regularly? Are you giving yourself the nourishments, particularly for breakfast? It's going to be very important for you. Okay. And I think overall your nutrients are depleted. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you say, is it my electrolytes? Absolutely. Particularly magnesium. Okay. Particularly magnesium. Lack of magnesium is going to cause your bladder to get spastic, and you can't hold urine very well. Okay. So it's going to get tightened, and you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom constantly. Okay. That's because there's not enough movements, and then the bladder needs that movements and a flexibility, but it's rigid. Okay. So there's a little bit of rigidity that I sense from you when it comes to even food choices, and then part of your thinking as well, that maybe some of your practices, the energy practice and intuitive practice, have become slightly, maybe, like, I wouldn't say become, but it needs an upgrade. As we are upgrading, your practice may need to be upgraded. I hope that makes sense. Okay. All right, Chris, are we okay to go to the third, or you have something?
As you're going on, I wanted to say one quick thing, which is to look for things that could be causing you chronic stress, because stress is equivalent to raising your blood sugar levels. And I won't go into all of that right now, but just look for simple things that might be regular, constant triggers of stress in your life, and see if you can find ways to reduce those, because that's another thing that's going to impact those adrenal glands and lead to some of those symptoms. So I'll just leave it.
Yeah, and I think there's some connection with your daughter, that daughter that has Lyme disease. So yeah, I don't know why, but just as I was going to bed, I'm like, ask her about her daughter. And I was like, okay, whatever that means. But I was like telling myself, I'm like, don't forget to ask her about her daughter. So that's also where I go, also, as well as your food choices and blood sugar regulation. And like Chris said, every stress, okay, every stress is a blood sugar dysregulation. Okay, every stress. Right, so remember that. Okay, and then next thing, the third question from Ariel says, I have a basic question around food. I have heard conflicting information that the frozen veggies and microwaving veggies results in either more nutrients or less nutrients. And I remember learning never boil veggies because you lose all the nutrients in the water. But then you talked about doing so for 1 to 2 minutes for certain veggies to boil off some irritating compound. My friend likes to microwave squash, yams versus bake them. Does that have any effect on nutrients or sugar content? I read that the storing raw squash yams in the fridge increases their sugar content. To summarize, I am wondering if you have thoughts or tips to share on frozen, microwave, boiling veggies, roots, to get all the good stuff from them. Okay, so Ariel, I know you signed up for my 4 live calls, so I'm gonna go into this in the boundaries section, and I'm gonna go into in much more detail then, okay? But I just wanna say that there's no benefit, okay, absolutely zero benefit in microwaving foods, okay? That's why the microwaving is called nuking, okay? Nuking equals dead food. So you'll be eating dead food when you're microwaving. So microwave shall not be used by this community ever, okay? Like, it's just, you should never microwave anything, not even a mug of water. Please stop boiling your tea water in the microwave, okay? The only time I use a microwave is when I'm warming up my rice bags so that my feet will be warm in the bed. Okay, that's the, one of those warm things that you put in a microwave. That's the only time I have a microwave in my house, for that reason and that reason only. Okay, so that's number one. And I will talk much more about why we need to boil veggies, okay? And that yes, you will be losing minute amount of vitamins because you will be boiling them, right? Cruciferous vegetables and things like that we talk about. But we need to really remember these anti-nutrients, okay? There are some major anti-nutrients that are in the vegetables and nuts and seeds and beans and things like that, okay? They're there because anti-nutrients were created within the vegetables and other, food-based stuff to protect themselves, so that let's say the broccoli doesn't get eaten by the bugs. So it's a natural pesticide that the vegetables and legumes and nuts and seeds produce for themselves, okay, to remain alive, right? So it's a natural thing, but it's anti-nutrients for our bodies because our microbes are also bugs. And when you consume them without slightly boiling them and dumping those anti-nutrients out, you are going to be consuming them, and that's going to cause you to have your bugs can't eat them readily, or they can't digest them very well, and so on and so forth. So you're creating kind of a cascade of, you're eating great organic veggies, but you can't digest them. The bugs can't eat them and digest them and make butyric acid or other things to protect your cells. And then it just kind of creates this vicious circle, thinking, gosh, I eat wonderful organic vegetables and beans and nuts and seeds, but I just feel like I'm constantly having gut issues. And you might be been told that you have irritable bowel syndrome, or you go between diarrhea and constipation, or you have leaky gut syndrome, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's because you've got to remove some of these anti-nutrients out. And that's why we recommend cooking. And growing up in Japan, I never ate raw vegetables till much later in my life, when the salad started to get introduced from America. Almost, if you look at most Asian cooking, we basically boil our vegetables. Okay, and this isn't going to do it by steaming. This isn't going to do it by roasting. You must boil them, then you can roast them if you want. Okay, things like that. Okay, so I'm not going to go into huge details, but the soaking, sprouting, fermenting, and boiling are the ways to lower the anti-nutrient effects on your gut, so that your gut doesn't continuously get permeable and it doesn't have the effects of autoimmune diseases. Okay, so that's one. And then the last thing is about I think, yeah, so cooking, okay. Okay, so the compounds, there's multiple questions with this. So it's like, I'm going to answer some of them on my live calls. But one thing that you want to remember is starchy vegetables like potatoes, they can become a resistant starches, which is a good thing. Okay. That will not spike your blood sugar when you boil them and then you cool them. And then the next morning you make potato salad with it, or you roast the potatoes the next day in the oven after you've had the potatoes already boiled. That's going to create a much better digestive properties for the potatoes, and it's going to create less of a blood sugar up and down. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm going to wrap up with that. Is that okay, Chris, with that? Okay.
I just wanted to jump in. One comment came in about not using the cooking water from your vegetables. You covered that, but you'll notice a difference in your body if you stop doing that. If you're basically eating plant waste when you use that cooking water as part of your food, because that's what you're cooking off, is the things that they shed. Sometimes it's an insecticide that's part of their skin or something like that. There are a lot of anti-nutrients in that water, and so it's just, you will notice it if you stop doing it. You'll digest it better. It'll feel cleaner.
Oxalates are real deal, everyone. And if you have grandkids or your own child is really struggling with the ADHD, or, I just talked to somebody that is in her 40s and she just started on the ADHD medications and things like that, or you're having like a lot of crying fits or emotionally up and down, you got super anxiety coming through, or anxiety and irritability and hypersensitivity, and you get kind of aggressive, or you just can't seem to control your moods, you really got to start to dump that green juice out of your cruciferous vegetables and spinach. And also you got to soak your beans, you better be soaking your rice, you better not be snacking on nuts and seeds all day long. Okay. And I'll go into much more details on this, because this is the topic that I'm going to cover more in the boundaries section of my 4Bs. Okay. But those are just a couple things to remember. So if you're noticing your behavior is changing, or your mood swings is pretty bad, or if you notice your grandson is having kind of a behavioral issues in the schools, telling the kid to do, maybe behavioral therapy or something like that, maybe before you do all that and almost traumatize this kid, just say, hey, how is he eating his fruits and vegetables? And, this may just shock you, and I'm just giving you a little preview to my workshop that I'll be doing, but there are a lot of anti-nutrients in berries and ton of fruits. So it's a little bit of shocker, but there are ways that you can control that. So if you're always giving your kids or your grandkids fruits that are like berries and lots of blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, and raspberries and all that, like, you may want to think twice if that child is having some ups and downs and anxieties and insomnia and having a hard time sleeping at night because he or she is just like really worked up. Okay. So that's why we say boil foods. And, I said this to one of my clients this last week. I said, I've never seen a longevity book written about some Germans. Okay, it's a joke, right? So there's been enough longevity books written about Japanese people, right? Because they live well into their hundreds. Okay. But I've never read a book on, somebody that lives in, I don't know, somewhere in the United States, like a longevity, diet book based on American diet, sad American diet. So, I do go back to how I grew up. It's like growing up, we soaked rice. My mom would say, go home and soak the rice. So when I get home, we can start the rice cooker, so that was like, as a kid, that was like a job that we had. Soak beans, soak rice, soak vegetables. You could soak vegetables too. That will help you too. If you still want to eat some of it raw, you can just soak them in warm water. And they get vibrant too when you do that. They get very happy. Okay. All right. So the last question for the day is from Melissa. It says, I'm having pain behind my thighs, just above the knees, worse on the right side, and when sitting, and my lower legs feel heavy. And today I have all I can do to force myself to get necessary things done for extreme exhaustion. Even my sit bones are sore, like I've been in the saddle for days. Okay. I also noted that after I drink warm water, I feel bloated for hours. So for several days now, not sure if related. Thank you for any insights. Okay. Okay, so she stays away from mass media and all that, Facebook. And so she's doing that part. So that's awesome. So when I read this question, I went straight to, oh my gosh, this person is having a fatty acid deficiency. Number one, fatty acid deficiency. So when you don't have adequate balance of fatty acid deficiency, so it's a saturated fat, omega-3s, and then omega-6s, maybe omega-9s too. But if you don't have a variety of fats and your liver and gallbladder are digesting them, then you will feel like have you ever felt this, everyone, that you go up the stairs or something, you think, oh my God, I'm dragging my legs, my thighs are so exhausted, and you're like, I didn't even exercise. How's that possible? Okay, that's your fatty acid issues. And I'm going to have Chris chime in and explain a little bit more about the oxygen transportation with the fatty acid.
Okay. I want to say one thing in the lead up to that, which is you have to make sure that your stomach is digesting the foods you're eating. And I saw a couple of other somewhat related questions or comments come in on the chat about various issues, whether it's stone formation in your kidneys or your gallbladder. Anything like that is going to track back to your stomach. Any kind of bone issue is going to track back to your stomach. And so what I mean by that is you have to have a sufficient amount of acidity in your stomach to make a lot of these systems of your body work, the digestive systems. So I'll come back around from that. But fatty acids are something that, just to name a few things, how do we get fatty acids into our body? We have three essential fatty acids. There are saturated fats, omega-3 fatty acids, and omega-6 fatty acids. They're called essential because our body cannot make them itself. Okay, we have to take them in through our food. So that means that unlike some of the kind of pop culture level misinformation that you might have heard about saturated fat being just flat out bad for you, let me just tell you that if you're not eating enough saturated fat, here's what you're compromising. Every single cell in your body, the membrane of that cell is made up almost 99% of saturated fat. That's what gives a cell its healthy structure. So it allows it to perform its functions effectively, efficiently, and not break down under the stress of something like coronavirus infections. Okay, so it helps every aspect of a cell's function and life to ingest and digest enough of that saturated fat. Also, your brain is largely made out of saturated fat and cholesterol. We cannot live without these things. So a lot of us have been living with the very scientifically wrong advice that that fats are bad for us. And the fact is, we cannot function if we don't have fats in our diet and in our bodies. So, just having said that, the fats are also things that provide the energy for our cells. They help us with healing our bodies. They help us make our nerve cells. They help us make hormones. So we need them for virtually every cell function in our body. And it's something I just want to just keep emphasizing the point that the only way to get those essential fatty acids is through our food. Okay. So animal-based products are the main source of saturated fats. Okay. Butters and meats and things like that. And if you're not somebody that feels that you can eat those things, you can get saturated fats from other sources, but you have to be a lot more careful about how you're sourcing them so that you're getting enough. Okay, omega-3s and omega-6s. Omega-3s are fish oils, the most common one, but you can find those in nuts and seeds and vegetables and meats. And same with omega-6s. You can find them in seeds, particularly nuts, and then also in grass-fed meats and fish. So I'll stop there because we could say a lot more.
Yeah, and 1 hour we went 1 hour, but yeah, egg yolks are basically very much balanced, not egg whites, but egg yolks. So that's a very healing food for most of us. And people that have been told that they are allergic to eggs, you really actually need to look at allergy tests. They only test the cooked eggs, and cooked eggs can change the protein forms. That's why people can get allergic to cooked eggs. But you want to look at soft boiled or even raw egg yolks as a healing remedy for your gut and your body. So that's where I would look when you are having kind of those exhausted tiredness. And then also, it's not how much fats you're eating, but how are you digesting, right? That's when the bile conversation becomes very important. So I'm going to wrap up with the questions, but I just wanted to mention in last part, everyone, is that this week will feel like, it started out just kind of like, okay, where am I? I'm a little bit slow. Okay. But it's going to have some stirring kind of a feeling, like I said, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So manage your day to day, manage your position, manage your groundedness. Okay. And also, I can't help it but to do the numerology with Joe Biden, right? That he's the 46th president, and you add 46 and it.
Hope I don't curse the house.
Somebody's on the, okay. You add the 4 to 6 and then it becomes 1, right? So there's a new beginning that is wanting to come through, but it's not as smooth of a transition, obviously, right? And we have the 11/11 coming up too this Wednesday. And that's going to be my John Burgos Day call. So it's a big one, right? So really feel into the 11/11 energy and think of them as antennas going up into the skies. Okay. So what if all of us had 11s going up? Can you imagine all these antennas going up into the cosmos and then the 11s going down into the ground? So we got the antennas and the grounding forces going in. So become the antenna for love and light, okay? And let this 11111 energy really flood through you and onto others and then within yourself too. And know that we're all breathing together right now. We're taking breaths together. So for the wrap up, I wanted to see, for those of you that are staying on this call right now, let's just close our eyes and imagine that we're all holding each other's hands. So rest your hands onto the other person's palm as you let the person next to you's palm rest on your palm. Okay. And as you breathe, imagine that you're starting to synchronize your breath. Like pendulums will start to synchronize. If you put pendulums in the room or the clocks in the room, they start to tick at the same time. So allow the inhales and exhales, the buoyancy of that, lightness of the breath. I hope you're feeling the lightness of the breath for the first time in a long time for many of us. We're all holding hands. You're not alone. We're one. We're in this together. And let the antennas come out of you. So number 11's coming out of you up into the sky and ground them down towards the ground as well through your legs. And let's take one more breath together. And visualizing yourself releasing those palms and bring your palms to your heart center. We'll get through this, everyone, because you know that you are the light, and because you are love and you are loved.